wrote this and won that. Oh, but what do I know? I got degrees and went to schooling. But what do I know? Survived backstabbers and Judases. But what do I know? I've been out here, man. I've been doing this. Let's get to the dough. I've been showing it. I've been proving it. I'm ready to go. Discuss the what, whys, and the who did it. Let's get to the show. This podcast just might be the go. Oh, but what do I know?
That.
My bad. Ain't that about a bitch? What the hell? Alright, so like, okay, and anywho, we're gonna try that again, even though we can't back that up or edit that or none of that. But welcome to But What Do I Know podcast with your host, your girl Rukus, and
Your girl Jamie Nichole just messing up all the intros tonight.
and over here, and as always, we have our other co-host.
Trey Smith whipping my hair back and forth and shit. It's all over today. I love it.
He is wild tonight. I love that. There are no braids. He's gonna get loose this evening. So, and Jamie, would you please introduce our guest speaker?
Sure. Tonight we've actually brought on Tajuddin Al-Shahid, and he is a poet. He's a pillar in the community, and we're just going to be talking about what's been going on in his life. So, Brother Taj, how are you doing, sir?
I am doing excellent, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming and joining us tonight on the But What Do I Know podcast. So, tell us about what's been going on with you, like in the community and going on.
A bunch of craziness, to be quite honest. I'm extremely busy, but in my life has been a bunch of craziness because I just had a baby boy myself. So, but the field that I work in, I've been a community activist for a long time, and have been working lately in reentry and prison reform. So that's kind of where a lot of my focus has been, really since the beginning of the year. And then, so juggling kind of those responsibilities that I have working in that area, and then with some of my own personal things that have been going on in the past couple of months. So it's been a lot of activity, all dynamic and all moving mostly in a positive direction for sure.
What kind of led you to becoming an activist?
Man, that's a good question. I think maybe most people who are activists would probably say all in unison that you just fall into it, to be quite honest. If you're part of the community, you end up in some way, shape, or form becoming involved in the issues that affect that community, and you may even have different hats and be straddling the fences of different communities themselves. I am a Muslim, so I'm active in the religious community, both in interfaith and the Islamic community. So I've just because of my own religious practice, that has led me to activism in those areas. Living in Denver, I've been a part of many issues that affected, especially the sort of like the east side of Denver, the northeast side of Denver, just living in those areas. So, both all these different factors you end up kind of falling into that title of activist, really.
Now, were you born Muslim, or did you just?
No, I actually converted when I was in my early 20s as a consequence, really, of a couple of things. One, I was in prison, and just coming to the realization that I needed to change my life so that either I would not continue a life of incarceration, or even worse, a life of sort of criminal activity. So in my own personal journey and spiritual growth, I came across Islam in my own studies of world religions, and was drawn to it mostly because I didn't know nothing about it. So I was fascinated just learning about it. And then it just came across as sort of the answer to a lot of the philosophical questions I had within myself. So I embraced Islam in 93, and then have just been active in the community ever since, really.
So when you talk about being active in the community, I mean, what does that actually look like?
That's a good question. A lot of showing up, really in a nutshell, showing up. So within my community, because both religion, which our religion has built-in activism in and of itself, but then there are the political issues, such as our foreign policy, quote unquote terrorism, things like that. And so when events happen, whether it's a protest, whether it's showing up in terms of speaking, for example, I've spoken on many campuses. I've been invited to speak to Congress several times. So it's those type of activities that sort of really define what activism is in a collective sense, I think.
And so, are you also in the political realm as well?
Yeah, yes. Interestingly enough, one of the early jobs that I fell into when I actually got out of prison in the late 90s, I started working for a political strategist, and I became a polling manager, and my first client was President Bill Clinton. So I was drawn more so into, I was always interested in politics, but I was drawn into it now as a sort of real active player. And then I continued working for the Democratic National Committee, which led me to working for different candidates throughout the country on different levels, from governor to actually presidential aspirations. I ended up actually working for Obama doing this type of work. So, and then of course increasing my own sort of activism on a local level, because to be quite honest, presidential politics is an illusion in terms of its importance. The real importance is your local politics, what happens in city council, what happens in the state legislature, as much more so than Washington. So.
All right, and I don't want to kind of interject, like I know you more as a poet, so I mean I know we're gonna get into that in a little while, but so I'm happy to have you here because I get to finally. It's a
pleasure to be. You know, we've been circling around and doing different things together, so I'm glad to be in the same room doing this with you, sis.
And some of the people may not know. So but What Do I Know podcast is about, we bring people on who live certain walks of life, so they walk that walk, so that way they can come here and talk the talk. Let us know, educate us on the things that they've learned, either through education, through the books, or through the footwork. And so this man is here. I may have not known this is our but what do I know about the criminal justice system? And it was here, so he's gonna also try to educate us about the criminal justice system, because you know firsthand. And right now, if you wouldn't mind, can you kind of, I know you may or may not want to give that background. Can you tell them a little bit why do you know so much about the criminal justice system?
Let me work backwards if I can, in the sense of a timeline. Presently, I am a programs director and a care manager. We don't like to say case manager, but a care manager with Second Chance Center, which is an organization that provides services for the formerly incarcerated. So that's my main job, where I get my bread to eat from. So my experience in this occupation, it allows me to parlay a lot of my own personal experience in terms of providing services for our clients. We also work in prison and criminal justice reform in general, meaning we have influenced and even helped pass legislation, especially on the state level, dealing in that realm itself. So that's what I do now. But all of that really culminated from, as you mentioned, personal experience dating all the way back to 1989, when I was convicted of aggravated robbery and did a 16-year sentence in prison. And so that experience in and of itself, and kind of understanding and learning, unfortunately, the inner workings of our quote-unquote criminal justice system, gave me that firsthand experience in terms of understanding the system, understanding how it works, why it works or doesn't work. And so I've been able to parlay that sort of experience in and of itself, because I did a straight 7 years on 16, ended up going back to prison just several years ago, really on false charges, which was a real lesson in how really the system doesn't care about justice. It really just cares about slave catching, so to speak. And so that recent experience and exposure to really the inner workings of the system is something that, again, has also fueled my present work, which, has been really over the recent couple of years.
So now that we've talked about, what your background is, what kind of opportunities has your experience been able to create for you? I know that you've talked about Second Chance Colorado, but aren't you also part of the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition?
Yeah, so that organization is a major player in criminal justice reform, especially here in Colorado. So Second Chance Center really has worked with them from the inception of the organization itself. Their realm is really in the legislative aspect of criminal justice and criminal justice reform. We work more with those who've actually been formerly incarcerated and are more one-on-one with mentoring and counseling and providing top-to-bottom services from housing to employment opportunities and things like that. But CCRJ has been major in terms of sort of the maybe umbrella aspect of how the system itself works. And they've been able to influence a lot of changes, especially positive changes in criminal justice reform. So we work hand in hand with them. It's a great tandem. It's been a wonderful tandem. We've been able to both kind of work off of each other in the field in general.
So going back to Second Chance Colorado, I mean, how would somebody get a hold of you or a hold of the organization if they needed help, and what kind of services can they get from Second Chance?
I'm a Facebook person, so I always direct people to Facebook. You can find us. We have a page, the Second Chance Center, and we're always got to be careful to say Second Chance Center because there's all kinds of organizations called Second Chance Bicycles, blah, 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 blah. So you can find us under Second Chance Center. We have a website, so you can find us at scccolorado.org. Our programs are listed there on the website, the different things that we offer. And also we have a lot of details on the Facebook page as well. So we're not really hard to find, to be quite honest.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Can you kind of give everyone an idea as far as what's the difference between the two as far as Second Chance Colorado and the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition?
To be honest, in terms of our missions, they're pretty much hand in hand. But CCRJ, again, works more in the realm of legislation and affecting the laws and the regulations that affect criminal justice reform and criminal justice in general, from the court system to the Department of Corrections. We're more concentrating on services. So a person that is formerly incarcerated is really looking for a life of success and fulfillment. So that's really what our mission is to create the opportunities for people when they're released back into our society in the general sense. I hate saying our society because it really has always been our society. But when they become free, we want to create opportunities for them to stay free, but also find a life that is not just about staying out of trouble, but really a life that's about finding some personal fulfillment and also maybe even giving back. We concentrate more on the services, I guess, if there's a difference, whereas they're more legislative and kind of the framework of prison reform itself.
Okay. Oh, thank you for explaining the difference.
No problem. Thanks for asking.
Now, earlier you said that you've been able to have a chance to see firsthand the things that are right and the things that are wrong with this justice system.
Yeah.
So I would like you to keep that in mind and let me know what you think is wrong and right in this justice system as of today,
right,
with basketball, me not being able to watch the Lakers. I can't watch the Lakers play right now
that's all
because
bad.
of some more fuck shit that has happened recently. And I would like to know how you feel with your experience with the justice system and what you've seen, what's wrong, what's right, what kind of change?
Well, what's wrong has to be, and it's really a good question, sis. What's wrong has really, what has always been wrong, there's been no justice. We aspire to those ideas, but our criminal justice system has never had an interest in justice. If it did, it would collapse in and on itself very quickly. So it's really about economic judiciary, making things fast, making things real tidy, and getting people out of the way. And what's been wrong is that there's been a clear racist agenda from the inception of the system to basically take care of what was the black question at the end of the Civil War. What do we do with all these free dark people that were slaves, and we were pretty satisfied that they were on the plantations. Now they're out here after our jobs. What do we do about them? Well, the criminal justice system has been the answer since the turn of the century, or turn of the 19th century. So it's been doing that for a long time. What's been wrong is we've just been ignorant of it, both as an overall society and also as a specialized segment of as people of color ourselves. We didn't recognize it, that that's what the system was, that it was basically neo-slavery or the replacement of slavery. What's wrong today is it continues to be that way. When we talk about the history of criminal justice, we tend to think about it in the old days and that it's something that happened way back then, and we don't realize that it's happening today. There isn't necessarily a quote-unquote plantation, but there is. It's just called the prison, the prison industry itself. And we don't think that people are slaves, but they really are. They're just inmates now. So it's what's wrong is that we just had really slow recognition of what the system really was. When Michelle Alexander wrote The New Jim Crow, it was probably one of the first eye-opening exposés of what really the criminal justice is today, even linking it back to, its early inception, a century and a half ago. So I think we're just sort of waking up to it now. What's right about it is nothing. I'm gonna be honest. There's nothing right about our criminal justice system other than the fact that it's so broken that it almost has no choice but to collapse. And we need to be prepared for it. But that's the only thing that's right about it, is that it's extremely fragile in its nature and not far from collapsing, to be quite honest.
So when you say,
so what are your thoughts for the people who don't even get to make it into the criminal justice system? Like right now, a lot of our people, we come into contact with the police and we don't even see jail or see due process or see any of these things because we're murdered immediately.
Right.
Like, do you think, what do we do? Is it time to go back to the whole arm yourself? Is that going to make things worse if we're back to the everybody up and half,
No, but I don't think we need to go back to that. But I do think that there is some recognition that we all have to be unified in. We have to have a collective understanding of what we're facing. Because then what that does is it creates a collective activism to, in my opinion, help the system to collapse. I'll give you an example. One of the most prolific things that happens in the criminal justice system that makes it work very well is the plea bargain system. If only 10% of defendants understood how prolific it is, and they decided to just exercise their rights to not take a plea, or maybe have another hearing to further their court proceedings, then the system would fail, because it would realize that what we've established to make things work expeditiously in terms of locking people up and then eventually matriculating them into prison is going to fail. Then there would be a change of thinking, especially among district attorneys, and that would trickle down to police as well. One of the interesting things that's happened, at least presently with like COVID, is were the early orders given to our local police departments to not make so many arrests. Not because they don't think we're committing crimes, but it's because the jails were too full and they couldn't handle people that were infected. And so they did some preemptive things that said, oh, you don't make so many arrests, be a bit more discerning, as to whether or not you're going to lock somebody up. I think, now that's a result of a disease, so nothing within our control. But imagine if we did some of the things in terms of making the system work in the way it's supposed to. That's what would happen. That those orders would happen despite a disease, and we would see that more in our society. So that's what I mean about a collective understanding about how things happen. Because right now, most of us get locked up and we try to get out the next day. And if they bring us a deal, we're going to take it.
That's if we get locked up, because we're seeing now from like George Floyd and situations like that, and like Rukus was saying earlier, we don't even get a chance to make it to due process.
Right. So that's another. So there's another opportunity though. This is going to sound unpopular, but the idea that a couple of white police officers can police a whole black neighborhood is something that we have control over. We just got to start exercising that more. Now that might mean an unpopular idea about more of us got to be interested in applying for law enforcement jobs. But I would rather see that than, again, a minority of white officers trying to police a black neighborhood. And then we sit back, many of us that don't have records, right, can still have wide open opportunities. Those are the areas that we should go into. We understand justice because of the lack thereof. So who's a better expert at law enforcement except those who have had their necks, stepped on over and over and over about law enforcement? We know what it's supposed to be because we see what it's not supposed to be for too long.
Well, they say that we really need to get back to a place where people in their own, like you said, people from their own community should be policing their own community, if that's the career path that you want to go down. But, it just, we were raised off of NWA,
Right.
So, it's fuck the police.
Yeah. Yes. But so maybe not, the police is not really the only sort of protective entity that we have. We should have more black firemen and firewomen, to be quite honest. But again, every time there's a fire, you see 4 white guys in the truck. They're all the heroes. Everybody wants to put them on calendars and shit. You don't see us.
My ex-husband was a firefighter.
Okay.
My next door neighbor's a
Excellent
firefighter. Like, he's black. Like,
yeah, but that should be more of a traditional thing, honestly, for us. We should save our own houses. They in our neighborhoods. We should be interested in those types of ideas. Like when something catches fire, I should be the first one on the scene. So let me go get some training. It's a good job. I got no felonies. We really ain't running around with felonies and shit in the way that's prolifically portrayed in the media, right? So we have those opportunities to take those types of jobs that then lead to the services that you're providing back to your own neighborhood. And I'm not just talking about law enforcement, but I'm talking about these traditional ideas about supporting yourself instead of waiting for somebody else to come in and fill those roles, and then they just make their own determination about how to do it.
So what do we do about giving people in our community an alternate look at those positions? Because we see so much negative as far as the police go. We see so much of it, we don't look at that as an option.
Right.
Because we're so against it from our experiences. Even, your experiences, my experiences, we're so against that. So I want to know what you personally think we do to get people to look at that direction and say, maybe this is it.
I have a personal philosophy that I used a lot when I worked for Obama, and that is you have to start at the grassroots level. And we promoted that idea to Obama when he wasn't really buying it, and it worked. So I think that we have to take that sort of approach and then use these ideas of, so if the media is doing something in a certain way, we got to start looking at the media different and start making our own media sources. This is an example of that, right? Right now, there's a whole bunch of these on public access and online, and there's a bunch of white people doing it. How many of these shows that look like this are out there? Well, it started somewhere. You guys came up with this idea, decided it was a good idea, probably against all kinds of odds, probably against all types of criticism and naysayers. And you said, excuse my language, fuck that. We're going to do it anyway. That's an audacity. I think the answer to your question is we got to foster that audacity of changing the paradigm. There's plenty of us that would do it if people would just support us in that. Then these sort of specialized media outlets, then they become repeatable, right? They become things that then we can multiply. And then we're then creating our own media, then we're creating our own viewpoints and our own perspectives and then promoting them. And then it changes the game pretty much, you know?
Well, what are your thoughts on, I hear you saying that we need to put more of us into these positions, and so that's, my nephew's going to school to be a judge, so I'm like, so,
okay.
So we're all about that in my family, but what are your thoughts, like Speech was just here last week, shout out Lady Speech, She was basically saying that we're talking about defunding the police and whatnot, but before then we need to learn how to actually police ourselves within our community. So what are your thoughts on how we need to try to police ourselves as brothers and sisters and community first before trying to bring in the outsiders and the people in badges that are abusing their authorities and whatnot?
I like the idea, but sometimes there's a trap in that logic, because what it says is that somehow we got to do something better than everybody else, especially to achieve some sort of equality. Well, if we're achieving equality and everybody's fucked up, then we can't buy this idea that we got to be superhuman, we got to be perfect in order to achieve something. So policing ourselves, I think there's a lot of room for growth in even what that looks like. But I think if we foster some of the basic ideas of courtesy and decency, which is nothing different than anybody else, no one does it better than anyone else. We think we do, or we think we should, and I think that's mythological. But I think there are plenty of opportunities to foster some of the traditional ideas that we've always had. The problem has been that the powers that be have not really, they've either distracted us from them, convinced us that they weren't good ideas or valid, and that in the end, we're less than everyone else. So there's some room in terms of what does policing look like? And some of that is really fostering, I think, a connectivity between us. Because as much as we look alike, we don't know each other. We still look at each other strange. We still find things that create separation from the color or the shade of our skin to what our hair looks like or to what side of the neighborhood you live on. So we have to start fostering connectivity and an interest in each other, because that's where the self-policing comes from organically. It's not even really policing. It's really just an interest in each other that then allows for us to foster behaviors and avoid behaviors like victimizing each other, right? Then we don't need policing, because we're respecting each other to the degree that we're not committing the level of criminal activity against each other where we're exploiting each other that then demands policing.
Right.
That's where we really start, I think, in some of those basic ideas that create connectivity. Because we still, as much as we think we're unified in what we look like and how we talk and whatever, we're really not. And we haven't begun to really foster that yet.
Before we go to break, I just want to get one. I don't want to keep coming back and keep talking about jail and jail and jail, but I do need to ask this. I need you to, is jail really what they make it seem like on TV? Like, give me a real quick, what's real, what's false? Like, from just a quick synopsis, if you can think from Oz down to whatever things you've seen on TV references, what's real, what's not?
90% of it is fake as fuck. No matter whether you see a reality TV show or something like Oz, the reality of jail is a whole lot of boredom and very small, quick bursts of activity. The rest is just people being warehoused, and then the people that run the jails managing the warehouse to make sure the shit don't fall off the shelf. That's really all it's about. It's no different. I wrote an essay a while back jail is a slave ship. And the slave ship is run a certain way to make sure everybody stays in the bottom of the boat and nobody comes to the top and kills the captain.
Right.
The rest of it is boredom, sickness, and misery, and slow psychological torture. And that's what jail is. Anything else is some bullshit that you see anywhere else.
Are jails necessary?
No. Nope, not at all. I think in some instances a jail cell is, but jail itself, no. Unless you're part of the criminal justice system that benefits from getting bodies the same way that slave ships brought bodies to the plantation. If you have an interest in that, then sure it's necessary. But for us as a whole, the society as a whole, hell no, not at all.
All right.
Yep.
Appreciate that. We're going to
Yes,
come
sir.
back. We're going to hear more because I know you're quiet. You're going to talk
I
more
got
when we
some
come
stuff.
back.
I got some stuff.
Let's put it on the table.
Yes,
for sure.
yes. Y'all make sure you guys are liking to AHRR Network, subscribing and whatnot. Please share. Let people know we are on right now. Send us your questions, your comments. We can make sure we get Brother Taj to answer them while he is here, telling us all that he can about the criminal justice system. Stay tuned. What do I know?
Let's go. I've been there, I've done that. Hey, but what do I know? I wrote this and won that. Oh, but what do I know? I got degrees and went to schooling. But what do I know? Survived backstabbers and Judases. But what do I know? I've been out here, man. I've been doing this. Let's get to the dough. I've been showing it. I've been proving it. I'm ready. Let's go. I've been there, I've done that. Hey, but what do I know? I wrote this and won that. Oh, but what do I know? I got degrees and went to schooling. But what do I know? Survived backstabbers and Judases. But what do I know? I've been out here, man. I've been doing this. Let's get to the dough. I've been showing it. I've been proving it. I'm ready to go. Discuss the what, whys, and who did it. Let's get to the show. This podcast just might be the go. Oh.
It's interesting, because of
Thank
course
you
a lot
for
of
tuning
people
in.
that I
Welcome
knew.
back to the What Do I Know podcast. We are here with Brother Taj, who is telling us what he knows about the criminal justice system.
Yes.
Now, right before we went to break, or a little bit before it, I happened to let it slip that I know him from the poetry scene, because that's people who know me a lot know me from. Well, I don't know where they know me from. I don't know. Some people don't know me at all. Yeah, I know. Honestly, but that's one of my scenes. And he happens to be on there. He's a very profound poet and one of my favorites. And I want to just kind of catch up with you on that. So off camera, I was asking. I asked, "Are you currently performing poetry?" And if you wouldn't mind, kind of letting the people know what your answer was and refreshing them on.
Yeah.
where we were on
So
that.
in short, no. But because really, I'm more recovering from my injuries of my recent gunshot wounding, and so and that was I'm still dealing with some jaw and mouth stuff. So it kind of made me shy away a little bit from performing. But I've been writing still, and I'm still lurking in the especially the open mic stuff, that a lot of it has moved online because of COVID, and there's a lot of live stuff going on. So I'm still floating around there because I'm still part of that community. Especially what happened with me in May, the community has been like a big source of support for me and continues to do so. So I'm still there, and I think once I heal up a little bit more, then I will get right back in the game. So I'm still writing though presently, so I'll have something, to bring to the table when I sit back down at it,
So,
I'm sorry. So how long exactly have you been doing poetry?
Bro, I don't even know, man, to be honest, because for a long time I was just a fan, especially of spoken word. So I would just show up at different events. But this, I really started writing and doing spoken word probably in the late 90s, around 96-ish, back in the day when Brother Jeff, his venue was like the incubator for a lot of poets.
Yeah.
And so I started back then and just kind of floated along, to be honest. I think I probably really caught my wings right around 2010, where I really took it seriously. Because there were people that I watched that took it serious enough to make a career out of it. I didn't, because I had a career and had a lot of work and responsibilities that didn't, allow me to really explore the idea of being a spoken word poet, especially one, make it something that, I ate off of.
Right.
But it didn't. That didn't happen until later. So.
Right. Like, what would you say is that thing that you just knew at that moment? Like, this is it. This is what I want. I enjoy this. I have to keep doing this.
I think probably the first time that I performed, and people, it was like on the open mic, but people like afterwards came up and they encouraged me to continue doing so. 'Cause it's the encouragement, because poetry is like poetry writing. First of all, is an exercise of the ego. You're putting something down with the full expectation that somebody reads it. If it's poetry, you're injecting some emotion with the idea that maybe somebody will get it. And that's still an exercise of the ego, because ultimately, who gives a damn, right? You just want people to give a damn about what you think, and you present it. And that takes some ego too, because again, who the fuck are you? So it's a risk, right? But when somebody tells you the risk was worth it, then you're like, ooh. And so that happened to me after I performed my first piece, and people were like, oh man, that was dope. You should come back next week. Now your ego stroked a little bit, and you feel like you can really do something, as opposed to somebody not saying nothing or being like, hey man, don't, like, go ahead and try something else. So and again, this is like back in the late 90s. And then when I kind of was floated along, I really didn't do a whole lot of performing. I was writing, but I was writing like, essays and things like that. When I got back into spoken word, that picked up in terms of people accepting what I did and feeling like what I was saying was meaningful. And that just was like an injection of, sugar to a diabetic, I guess. So I kind of stayed hooked onto it and just continued, on doing it. So.
Okay. No.
Now, are you working on any other new projects? I know that before, what happened in May, you were talking about doing a podcast. Yeah. What was that vision for yourself?
So I was doing, one thing I was doing was I was taking a lot of my spoken word performances and posting them. I got a page on my page, Brother Taj Poetry. So I was kind of exposed, putting my stuff out there. At the same time, I've always been interested in like commentary, social commentary and things like that. So I started doing like a little tiny video thing on Facebook where I would go live and talk about topical stuff. And so I was doing that kind of regularly. And then I was moving more professional stuff that was linked to my work with Second Chance. So we actually just launched the podcast as a project with Second Chance. It's been in the works for a while, but it's something that we just launched and something I'm really excited about. So I haven't done more of my personal stuff. I kind of, especially since May, left that alone as I was healing, and now I parlayed that more into professional stuff that's work related.
So what do you guys talk about on that podcast?
So we have a podcast called Uncarcerated, the podcast, and so we talk about more about re-entry related issues, things that affect people that are formerly incarcerated, from legislation to topics of the day. We tie that into criminal justice and criminal justice reform. So we pretty much try to take a holistic approach to the idea of not just criminal justice reform, but criminal reform. Because at the end of the day, I think that people who commit crimes are a fuel to this system. And so if you could cut that down, especially recidivism, then there's something to that. That's, I think, an idea that's promotable in terms of the idea of how do we reform the system. Second Chance Center itself enjoys, from its participants, a recidivism rate that's like 1/10 of the state and 1/10 of the nation. The nation's recidivism rate is around 50%, as well as Colorado's. Ours is like 4.9. So we're pretty successful at what we do. And so our idea is to take the vision of what we have as a blueprint and promote it. So that's what our podcast is about.
Very cool, very cool. And where did you say people could find that podcast again?
It'll be on the Second Chance Facebook page. We just launched it like 2 weeks ago. So we're doing some of the tweaks. You guys know about the tweaking early that you do to try to make a perfect sort of product. So we're doing that right now, but we have recorded 2 episodes. We're going to do it weekly. So I think Friday or Saturday we'll do our next one, and then we'll pick a platform. We have a couple platforms that we're thinking about hosting it from, and we got to go to the organization and the heads of it to make sure they give us the money to do that. 'Cause we ain't doing it for free.
Right.
But, yeah.
Now, earlier, one of the things you said, because we can't kind of gloss over that for the people who are not familiar with you. We kind of just gloss over like, May, and I don't do poetry because, half my jaw's missing because of May, and so yada, yada, yada. No, we got to go back to that. What exactly happened in May that changed
my life?
Your life.
To be honest. So May 29th, which was the first day and evening of the George Floyd protests here in Colorado. Right after the protests, I went home, and when I got out of my car in the parking lot of my apartment complex, someone attacked me and shot me 5 times. And so I suffered some severe trauma. I got shot in the head, first of all. That was the first bullet hit me in the head, went through my eye socket and pretty much shattered my whole face. It gave me a stroke because it hit my carotid artery on the way out. So I lost feeling in my left side, my left hand especially, and I lost pretty much most of the sight in my left eye. Went through some real crazy surgery. I mean, the guys went in at Denver Health and they pretty much, I liken it to somebody dropping a coffee cup off of a skyscraper, and then you go down there and collect it all and put it back together, and it actually looks like a coffee cup. That's what they did to my face. So I went through some real serious surgery, and I'm continuing because the other bullets hit my arm and broke my arm, and so I got a pin, like a big old screw in my arm, and it's all craziness that I'm dealing with in terms of healing. So I suffered the trauma of gun violence that night, and I'm still dealing with sort of the consequences of it in a medical sense. So.
Well, how's the recovery coming along for you? I mean, what kind of rehab are they doing with you?
Well, I'm just starting rehab, to be honest. I was doing some intense rehab when I was in the hospital. I was hospitalized pretty much for a month. And then I went to a rehab hospital for about a week, and then I went home. So in that sense, I was really serious about at least enough recovery to get the hell up out of the damn hospital and go home. Because the food is horrible. So, that in and of itself is motivation enough to get the fuck out of there. But, so I did have some really good rehab while I was there, but it wasn't enough. And so I'm finally actually, because, medical stuff is always stupid and drawn out more so than it should be, especially in light of how they're dealing with COVID and adjusting to the epidemic. So I'm just actually finally starting physical therapy beyond what I did in the hospital, and actually I start that tomorrow. So my recovery, in the sense of the generic sense of healing, has come along pretty good, and I think, to be honest, I've just been blessed with so much support from every corner of really the globe, if not the corner of our communities. It's been really crazy to me, to be honest, because it's extremely overwhelming when I think about it. And I'd be remiss to say it wasn't a factor in helping me, because the recovery's been kind of short. I mean, it just happened in May, and I got shot in the head and was bleeding out on the ground, when the people found me. And so to go from that to where I'm, walking around has been sort of miraculous, I guess. But
so, are you hearing anything from the cops about who did this? Any leads? Are they back? What are you hearing to follow up on?
Nothing. I'm gonna be, first of all, well, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm about to throw Aurora PD under the bus.
Go ahead. That's what we do. We under the bus do right there. What do I?
Right there.
I gotta be honest though. Even if it's inconvenient, to be honest, the detective on my case has been working his ass off. There was the guy almost actually got caught that night that shot me. I don't know who shot me. I didn't see them at all, because they came from behind me like a coward. And they did catch an elbow in the mouth, because I got these really deep marks in my elbow permanent from that. And that's probably what caused them to shoot me, because I really think there's a lot of theories, a couple of theories that the police were working with, that it was an intentional robbery, and that probably was a part of an initiation. But again, that's all theoretical, because the reality is I don't know who did it. They don't know who did it. The person almost got caught because there was some witnessing to when they left the scene, and then the police caught up to them not long afterwards based on the description of the vehicle that the guy left in. But there was a high-speed chase and they got away. So there's some partial clues, like a partial plate, that they're still working through. But outside of that, there's not a lot to go on except some theories. And to be honest, my thing is, they lucky they got away from me. And that's what I kind of rest on, that God helped them, you know what I'm saying? And when God helps you, then they know, you good.
You're a bouncer.
Yeah.
You're a bouncer. You got quite a few, got some enemies.
I do.
Out there.
I don't.
Petty enemies. They're just bad because
I don't. Yeah, not enough. I honestly, because of course I thought about who could it have been. I landed on a couple of people, but I'm gonna be honest. Nothing. I didn't walk around with any serious enemies. No, nobody, even that may have rose to that level that I would even take serious enough to do what happened. So, again, it's theoretical. The reality is I don't know who did it.
Right.
Even if I could, maybe point the finger at somebody, I still would be pointing blindly. So, I don't worry too much about it, because the reality is I came that close to death and God decided otherwise. So I'm good,
So let me ask you, how do you feel that the incident has changed your life? What are the biggest things that you've taken from it? What do you do progressing and moving forward with everything?
Oh, good question, bro. I had a really surreal sort of spiritual experience I don't know if it created any epiphanies in me, but it did make me very grateful for what happened to me in comparison to what I've seen happen to other people. So I learned to not take life so much for granted. I was determined not to get into any self-pity. And I was fortunate that I had too many people around me that would not even allow that to happen. I also had an impending birth of my first son, so that was allowed me to kind of get away from that to focus. I'm clear on some issues such as gun violence that I already had a pretty strong opinion about, and what happened to me only underlined it. So some of my viewpoints about that, I think, are carrying forward, especially in the work that I do just in reentry and criminal justice reform in and of itself.
Will you share some of those opinions with us?
One, I think that as a society, for us not to have a sensible sort of legal framework for gun control is just dumb as fuck. And it's a reflection on us as a society. We're just stupid as hell, and we just love to shoot shit. Which, again, is not a good reflection on any society. I also think, in the sense, maybe a much more cultural sense, that we have to foster some maybe different paradigms, especially in our youth, but not even in our youth, even just among ourselves. I think, especially in the backdrop of Black Lives Matter, there are some things that we are missing that we really got to start paying attention to. The first thing is that because the idea of Black Lives Matter is to kind of educate people into the idea, to promote that to people that ain't black. We should do a better job of promoting it to ourselves, because I think that in order to counter, and this is not just in the realm of the police killing us, I just think that we've had 500 years plus of people telling us that we're subhuman, that we don't matter, to such a prolific level that we believed it about ourselves and each other, which then allows us to treat each other less than human, because that's what we've been taught. And I think that we have to start countering that myth and those teachings with an equally radical teaching of self-love, to the point that I can look at you and say, because of the color of your skin and how your close proximity to me and my love for myself, I see you, I see me. What that does is then foster these ideas of courtesy and respect, to the point where I say, I could steal from you. I'm hungry, and you got something that I can eat off of, but just on the basis of what our history has been, I'm going to skip that and give you the respect as a human being to the right to your own property and your well-being and your safety, and I'm not going to violate that. I tell people, when I talk about this, I use Obama as an example, because, you know, most of us voted for him really for one reason, because he was a brother. But there was this pushback, even amongst ourselves. They were like, nah, we should vote for the best candidate. Don't vote for Obama simply because he's black. Vote because if he has a good policy. And I was like, as somebody who promoted Obama and helped him put his strategy together, when I spoke to black audiences, I was like, fuck all that. I'm going to tell you, as a main strategist, I'm going to vote for him for one reason, and I know his policy because I helped put that shit together. There's only one reason to vote for him, because he's black, and I don't have no apology for it, because I know what it meant historically when you have a black candidate and how the culture of this nation reacted to that.
So you think the Biden ticket, you think that's pretty much the way that everybody needs to go, because of the fact that there is at least someone, they're going to argue black or not black, there's someone of color?
No.
Okay.
Because while what I just said was very simplistic, I do think that we also, as a community of people, have to understand the sophistication of our vote, what it really means, or what it can mean. And so that when we're presented with these candidates, we can discern certain things, like we don't have to be beholden to a two-party system, especially when the two parties really ain't that different. But we have to also be able to present that understanding. We have to be able to present our own sophistication to make them beholden to us. Because historically, we're still beholden to the system. So when they put up a black person, we're not necessarily recognizing that they're a puppet, nor are they. So it's a give and take thing. When someone presents a black candidate to me, I'm not so quick to think that they're a coon as much as I'm insulted by the people that prop them up. But again, that takes some understanding of really how politics works and some of the nuances that we've been cut off from historically. But I think we're learning. I think we understand that there are some areas that we gotta really start growing into, in terms of our own. So I think it's coming.
So tonight's walkouts, tonight's with the NBA and everybody not playing and whatnot, you think that's a step in the right? It's not gonna. What kind of results do you think we can expect from that kind of a movement?
Here's what I hope, because to be honest, I don't know what to expect. But here's what I hope, and I found that hope in Kenny Smith and what he did on TV when he was doing his broadcast on TNT.
He walked out.
And he walked out.
Right.
Because that's an individual thing. Collectively, the NBA is still a bunch of puppets that are being controlled by Geppetto, who ain't black. But when you see somebody who really risks his career, Kenny might not show up tomorrow because they're going to disinvite him. The NBA players will show up because they ain't been disinvited yet. But when you see one person do that, it reminded me of Muhammad Ali. And of course, not on that same level, but it was one person who knew more than anybody about the reality of why we shouldn't be at war killing people because of who they were, because they spoke a different language and they had a different shade than us collectively in our country. What Kenny did reminded me of the courage. That's what I hope. I hope that what they did fosters individual courage, because then you'll see more of that.
So why do you think that it was such backlash when Colin Kaepernick, knelt down, and now, 2-3 years later, we have NBA lockouts, we have people walking out. Why was there such a disconnect there? Why is it now people can understand it, but back when Colin Kaepernick did it, it was like this whole,
right. Some of it was just complacency in our own community. First of all, what Colin Kaepernick did wasn't new. We treated it as something new and amazing and somehow prolific. But people don't remember Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who really did what Kaepernick did 20 years ago.
He played for us.
And he played in this city. Yeah, he played in this city and did exactly what Colin did. There was much more of a sort of complacency in our own community about the issue in general, right? And some real, I think, some preconceived notions about him, because he was Muslim, so we all thought that Muslims were terrorists anyway, and so we didn't really understand the ramifications of what he did for us collectively. I think we began understanding more of that more and more by the time Colin did what he did, which I think created more of a voice amongst people. But like I said, even what Mahmoud did wasn't new, So I think that individual, because what Mahmoud did was still an individual expression of courage, for real, because he gambled his livelihood and he lost. Colin gambled his livelihood and for the most part lost until, people came back around and said, you know what, we're not going to jump on that bandwagon. Kenny, what he did, he might lose his livelihood. It's a big gamble. But I think that it's another example of courage that I think people can attach to.
I think what we're seeing right now is a lot of it is you see a lot of those people who didn't listen at first come back and say, like with Roger Goodell, I regret that I didn't listen.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. You know, I completely understand and support people who are willing to listen, but we also have those people who are just going to be, they're set in their ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me personally, I see someone at a certain age and, you know, when they're a white individual who's 60, 70, 80 years old, that's instilled in them.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised when they make those decisions the way they do anymore. It's just a part of their life.
Yeah.
That's how they grew up, thinking that it's okay. Those are going to be the hardest people to reach. I think it's going to be more of a changing of the guards that has to happen with, just to be honest, it's going to be them passing on that we're going to be able to move forward and see progress and see that old way, that shit is out the window for us at this point. You know, we're not going to ask anymore. We're not going to beg anymore. You know, you're going to give it to us or else. You know, I don't believe in asking for I don't believe any of us should have to ask for basic human decency or to be treated as equal. That's what we are. So for anybody to treat you as you're less than, beneath than, or they're better than you because they may have a better advantage, but they're going to do the mediocre work with the advantage that they have, whereas we're going to bend over backwards and show people that we strive and we excel at these things, where you guys are just you're going to do the bare minimum, and that's cool if you want to do that. But we, on the other hand, are going to show y'all why we're better at it and what we do with it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that comes back from the way we were raised as children. I don't know about you guys, but me, I was always told I have to work twice as hard. I have to be the best of the best of the best. And then you have your counterparts that, you know, again, like you said, mediocre. You know, they can float on by and, you know, get the same results. Mm. But what I am seeing with this new generation, they are not their parents. They are, you know, standing up and they're looking at equality and they're looking at, you know, you can't treat people a certain way. And I have to admit that is starting to ring true a lot now.
Right.
I think in terms of, just to interject something real quick, in terms of what you're saying, not just, I agree. At some point, I'm the same way. When I see an old white guy, I'm like, you racist. Because you benefited for most of your life from a system that is predicated on your supremacy. And like you said, it's hard to reach those type of people because in order for them to change, you know, they got to get uncomfortable. And nobody likes that. The reality, though, is not just waiting for them to pass on. The reality is the system that they rest on, that they will pass by, is still there. The reality is you got to tear all of that shit down and start from scratch. And that's something that I think collectively we're starting to learn, that it's not just, let's get the racists out of here. We got to tear everything they stood on for centuries. We got to tear that shit apart, down to the bare minimum, and then start over, which is a big job. But the reality is, if you just let this present generation of old white people pass by, their kids who they've already instilled those same values, they're just going to feel their place.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm seeing a change, a mental change now. I'm seeing kids stand up to their parents. Like, your thought process is wrong. I mean, we're seeing this all on social media.
We're seeing it, yes, but not to a level that is even scratching the surface. And the reason to prove that is this fool that shot all those people in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
He was a kid.
17.
He was a kid.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. We need to take a break really fast and pay the people who brought us to come here and entertain you guys right now. So please stay tuned. We'll come back for our final portion of this evening's sit down with Brother Taj. We're going to get into y'all's questions that y'all have sent us throughout the week that you guys would like us to ask while he is here. Please make sure you share, tell people we are on, and all that fun stuff. Send us your comments so we can get them answered, and come right back for What Do I Know?
Let's go. I've been there, I've done that. Hey, but what do I know? I wrote this and won that. Oh, but what do I know? I got degrees and went to school. But what do I know? Survived backstabbers and Judases. But what do I know? I've been out here, man. I've been doing this. Let's get to the dough. I've been showing it out.
welcome back for the inning of the What Do I Know podcast. I almost stole the sports show shit, the fourth inning. I'm kind of mad that we don't have like quarters and innings and shit today yet, because I'm into sports and I'm jealous of that. And I guess I'll plug it. My husband hosts that show. Everybody be wondering, who is she married to? There it is. That's my secret. My husband is one of the hosts of the what is the name of their shit? He gonna be mad.
Shit.
Sports podcast. It's here. It's Thursdays and it's Saturdays. Yeah, I'm just kidding. No, it's Game Point. Game Point Sports Podcast on Thursdays and on Saturdays. Make sure y'all do tune in there to the AHRR network. Don't ever say I never did shit for you besides fuck you and feed you. All right. Now, moving forward. We are getting and his birthday tomorrow. Ow, see me getting drunk started right now. All right, anywho, no, we get into the fun part of the But What Do I Know podcast. Everybody that comes here knows that we let our hair down. So yes, we do discuss serious topics, but we also get to know the fun side of people. So, how do you talk about the fun part of the criminal justice system?
I didn't come up with none.
Last week we had speech here, and one of the guys in the videos that we showed was a guy who said that he likes his salad tossed with grape syrup or what is that? Was it syrup or jelly? You remember the salad toss, dude? Remember that Boondocks had a good time making fun of all the whole series of the Booty Warriors and salad toss people and all that funny stuff. As somebody who has been in the criminal justice system, do you find that shit funny or not?
Some of it I do.
And are you going to take it the hard way, or are you going to do it the easy way?
Here's the part I find funny. The whole dynamics of homosexuality in prison is hilarious to me. Because you see really a different side of people. That's just ridiculous, yo. I mean, I've seen dudes who are really like straight up, at least portray themselves as straight up gangsters, really like just look really silly chasing another dude. I've seen dudes that go out of their way to make themselves look like girls, and then the next week they got these beards and shit. You'd be like, yo, last week you had Kool-Aid on your lips as lipstick. Why do you look like a grizzly bear all of a sudden? So those types of things are kind of funny to me, because they show these crazy facets of human life in general.
So they're using Kool-Aid as lipstick in jail. I'm not gonna let you gloss over that.
Somebody what would be funny is somebody do an IG tutorial. That'd be hilarious.
They're gonna do it. Somebody just because they are inspired with that. They are inspired with that.
It is funny that you asked that question because I got a couple of y'all that gave me some flack and was, how you gonna be talking about motherfucking eating ass and men in jail eating ass and shit, nigga? And what y'all teaching the kids on that show? Are your kids watching a show about sex? Is what I want to ask. They shouldn't be up watching, especially it's school time right now. They shouldn't be up watching us talk about eating ass and so forth. So if your kids have questions about eating ass, that's your fault.
Monitor what's on their television.
For real.
Mm-hmm.
For real. Be a parent.
I got a son. He didn't see last week's show, so there's that.
Being a parent. Okay, you have been a parent several times before, but this is a unique time.
This is unique, man, because this is my first son.
Yes.
Clearly, my only son, and it's really exciting, man. I mean, this dude. I mean, he'll be a month old in a couple of days, but he's an amazing creature, you know. But the crazy thing is, I got a lot of deja vu because my first child is 23. Mm. There's a lot of similarities between this little baby boy and my grown-ass daughter that, as babies, they look alike. I mean, I hate to say that because my kid ain't feminine or nothing. But he got that frown that my daughter had that we still tease her about. And so the genetics is there. Which I'm having a lot of deja vu. I kind of feel bad because I'm so in love with this dude. I try to remember, was I in love with my daughter like that? I think I was. I think I was, but it was 23 years ago. You know?
Well, it's different. Well, my whole thing is like every parent's dropped a kid. I don't care what the fuck you say. Your kids roll to that back corner. My dad do that. The baby does that one good roll at the band.
Fell off the bed.
And he wasn't paying attention. Now, with you,
I got a recent story.
Right? How are you adjusting to that kind of stuff going on with the new disability and the fact, man? I don't care. Don't ever say you didn't do it. You did it.
Yeah, I mean, I did it when I had two good hands.
Right.
But I did it I was carrying my kid and I was standing over the crib, but I didn't have him good in my left hand. And that's really something I've been trying to practice because it sucks. But he wasn't in my left hand, right? And so he slipped. But I grabbed him with my right, but I had him in the headlock. And I was like, oh, I can't have him in the headlock. And so then he bonked on the on the crib, you know, and you know, he wasn't happy about it.
Right.
I ain't never heard him scream so loud in my life, and I'm like, dude, you hit the mattress. Like, it wasn't that bad, but oh man, it was horrible, man. It was horrible.
I bet. So we've all been through that as parents with twos. I was about to ask, like, somehow you adjusted to that there, adjustment there.
Yeah, I'm trying because I'm a little bit. I know how that babies are resilient, so I rely on that a little bit. But I am mindful of, you know, because when I had my daughter, I carried her with the head in the hand, and she was kind of short. But I had and I just carried her around like that all the time. But now this dude, I wrap up, you know, and try to make sure, you know, I don't do something accidentally. You know, I'm a little bit more careful. But
yeah. So So your daughters, what ages were they able to start dating?
30.
30. Okay. And
I'm kidding.
And the oldest one is 23.
Hey man, look.
And what age can your son start dating?
Look, I'm Muslim, first of all, so we don't even really encourage none of that.
Okay.
My daughters dated despite my rules, right?
Okay.
But I was aware of it. When I say be a parent, I'm serious. Be a parent. I don't trust them fools for nothing. And I don't let them know that I let them pretend like I trust them, but I don't trust them to do nothing right.
Don't.
And
that's
helps
part
them.
about parenting. Don't trust your kids.
Yeah, it's helped them stay out of
Don't trust your
prison.
kids.
They ain't never been to prison. They good. But nah, that's an open-ended question, because if you ask me, you ain't never dating until, you know, I'm ready to put you in the old folks' home. But, you know, it happened organically. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't happy about it, to be quite honest. But what I did was I pushed them to marriage, you know. So they got married, you know, got off the market as fast as possible.
Vernon question, and I don't care if anybody asks or doesn't ask. God damn it, why Vernon? This is a name that we have it now. This is a name
I'm getting a lot of flack from the Muslims.
Why Vernon? Where did that?
So the flack I'm getting is, why not an Arabic or a Muslim name, right?
Okay.
Here's my thing. So personally, I was adopted, and I don't know my father. He didn't even know I was even born. So my mom never told him that she was pregnant. I was adopted by a loving couple that they're my parents. They're my mom and dad. But their name, you know, it wasn't never mine. So when I converted to Islam, I changed my name, and I felt kind of bad about it, because I was like, you know, my parents raised me as their own, and you know, you want to carry on the name as homage to your parents. But for me changing it, it was a whole game switch. Mm-hmm. So when I had my son, I really felt like I was going to name. So Vernon is my father's name and my grandfather's name. Okay. So I'm the first of my name. I'm the top of the family tree, and so anything that grows, I'm gonna be, you know, I'm at the bottom. So I started something new, mm-hmm. But I felt like, out of respect to my parents, at least I would pay some dues back, and I would name my son after my father and my grandfather. So that is.
So now
I knew it was an old ass name.
It sort of hell is.
That's an old ass name.
Don't even ask me my father's middle name. That shit really old. You know what I'm saying?
Earl.
Overton.
Oberman?
Overton. Yeah, so you know, I was like, nah, I can't. So he's Vernon Ashahid. His middle name is Amin, so at least he has an Arabic name in there, in addition to my last name. But yeah, I named him really to kind of tie back, even though I have some missing links in my own sort of family lineage. You know, I got to respect my parents who adopted me when they could have just gone on ahead and they rescued me from, you know, a life of orphanages or whatever, and they took me in. I was adopted 2 days after I was born. They swooped in and they raised me. And so I've always been trying to be respectful of that, you know.
I'm going to get you in trouble. Name your top 5 favorite poets.
Local or like in history?
Poets. Period. If they ain't make it. So here's the thing.
Okay,
if
wait.
it's local, if
No,
they
no,
didn't
no,
make that
no,
5 and
no.
they local and they got a problem not being on your 5.
No, because these are,
Like-
yeah, then
I'm
look,
like,
I
really?
still got 1.5 ass whoopings left, and most people don't want that smoke, especially in the poetry community, because they won't be able to write no more. But my poets, yeah, I'm really, I got shot, but I ain't paralyzed or nothing.
That's right.
When you ask me about poets, I really talk about poets, not necessarily spoken word artists. My favorite poet is Nikki Giovanni. My next favorite is Langston Hughes, because he was the first poet I was really exposed to that was black.
Okay.
My second favorite though is E.E. Cummings, because his poetry, if you look at it, it's art. You don't even have to read it and see the artistry of it. Next, I say would be Audre Lorde, because I don't know too many poets that really wove emotion into their poetry. And she was she seemed like a genius in terms of what she wrote. So she really made me think.
And now I got to be petty. Local.
So local.
You brought it up, so I'm going to continue down that rabbit hole.
Local.
Somebody going to bed with a complex tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Yeah, for real. I like Rodzilla, my man, Roderick. I've always loved Lady Speech. I don't know, she doesn't do enough poetry for me, to be honest. And maybe just because she's always doing other stuff, but her poetry is just really, really, really dope to me. I've been a secret fan of yours for a long time, so I would put you in my top 5.
He's only saying that because you.
No.
He's a closet
shit. Yeah, I just because of my fanboy, it's all too out in the open, and I can't. I got to be reserved and shit. But I think your shit is dope. I would definitely have you in my top 5.
Right on. You got 2 more.
See, you
I
really
know.
put me under the gun.
I know.
That's
Bullshit.
It was a setup. It was a setup. We set you up.
Honestly, yo, that's some bullshit.
I know. You got 2 more.
Because I gotta really think about it. Fuck.
I've never heard of that poet before.
Jennifer Rinaldi.
Ah, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Like,
Man.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I'm biased because she's a close friend of mine. Her brother is somebody that's been a friend of mine for a couple of decades now. But her shit is sublime. I got one more,
Yeah,
right?
one more.
Fudge.
You look at the inboxes like, how dare you?
Okay, I'm gonna really fuck your show up right now. I'm
Go
gonna
for
fuck
it.
your show up because I gotta be honest.
No, we love honesty over here.
My
We love raw,
my
unadulterated.
ex-wife.
Dominique.
Yeah.
Oh, you goddamn right.
Yeah.
That's
I have to be honest.
Show up.
I have to be honest. Yeah, I can't.
I totally
And
agree.
look, me and her have a history where, for the most part, I've hated her guts, and I have been very vocal about it. And I have recently kind of come into some reconciliation with her. Not completely, because we still got some stuff to work through. But if I'm honest about her artistic ability, I don't think too many people can fuck with her.
I agree.
Honestly, so I've learned to be honest, even if it's uncomfortable for me or to other people. I don't give a fuck, because again, you can get whatever smoke you want. But I just think I would definitely have her in my top 5. Period.
So do you think that things are going to progress on a friendship level with you and Dominique, or?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know because I made it known that I didn't like her, and I said some really ugly things that I stand by.
Social media.
Social media is the fucking devil. It's like crack cocaine to Scarface. But here's my thing. I operate with integrity. If I say it, I'm going to stand by it. Even if it may be fucked up or I have to come back and edit it, I'll do it with courage and I'll puff my chest out about it because, again, my thing is I want to walk with integrity no matter what. So the things that I said, I felt were pretty true. And I would only edit because they were cruel and malicious. And I would edit them for that sake because I don't want that to be a legacy about how I behave. But her and I have shit to work through, period, that don't have nothing to do with what's portrayed in social media or in public or whatever. I stand by the fact that I had to work through some shit and put it down, or else somebody was going to just implode, and it was more likely going to be me. So I had to work through some things with her, and probably vice versa. So I don't know what the future will look like. But again, when you ask me a question, and I think about her, or you ask me a question about her, I'm going to give you a straight up honest answer, and with no chaser. I think she's one of the best poets in the nation, and definitely locally. So that's the God honest truth for me, period.
That's dope. That's dope. Y'all like Taj's list? Like and subscribe to But What Do I Know podcast.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. No, that's fucked up. Take his list.
Shout out to Jen. Shout out to Jen Rinaldi.
Yeah, Jen Rinaldi is dope.
Yeah.
It's all sorts of. They don't want to know my list. They'll be like, man, 'cause my list. They'll
Give
be
me
like,
2 people off your top 5.
2 people off my top
Yeah.
5. Ken Arkine.
Okay.
Panama Soweto.
Yes.
Out the gate. So
Okay.
out the gate.
That's
Ken
those.
Arkine,
Yeah.
Panama Soweto,
They belong there for sure.
Tamika Harper, Georgia Me, Georgia
Oh
Me's
yeah.
gonna
I
be.
mean, yeah. That's a.
Yeah, that's a given.
That's a no-brainer.
So,
No-brainer whatsoever.
Yeah, so I started getting into my tour mates and stuff, and some of my Atlanta folks, and so I mean my local's not local anymore. Like
Right.
I'm local more to there than I am here as far as the poetry world.
Let me
goes.
give you an honorable mention off of mine. Liza Jessie Peterson. First of all, she's out of New York.
Okay.
She's probably more known not just for her poetry, but she works in re-entry and prison reform. She's written this amazing play, kind of in homage to the movie 13. That was obviously a reflection off of New Jim Crow. So she does a lot of work in that area, but her poetry is just amazing. I got a major crush on her too, boy.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So.
man.
Poetry groupies. Tell the truth. You ever got any? You got any poetry groupies? We're gonna talk about it since you don't hear.
Absolutely.
Like,
and knocked them all.
He said knocked them all back. Got the draws from every one of them.
Not all of them.
Not all.
But, hey,
7 out of 10.
He just Cheeto
Yes.
dog.
Yeah. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, 7 out of
Poetry
10.
groups. Yeah, poetry groupies getting their draws up to Taj. That's funny. We gonna talk about who y'all
Cracking backs and all that.
I'm gonna find out your actual identity. I'm gonna find out because I know who all the poetry groupies are.
We're all stupid. We're all stupid humans, you know. At the end of the day, some of us get smarter than others, but we all do some dumb shit.
Yeah. So you believe in change?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe in second chances and change altogether, and sometimes third chances. So that's my work. That's how I eat, giving people that. So absolutely.
You think it's like is there such thing as too many chances?
God damn it, you're asking a really good question.
I do. I love it because I'm argumentative by nature.
Yeah.
She be killing that shit, B.
You know, I've been wrestling with that, to be quite honest. I've been wrestling with the idea. First, I've been wrestling with the idea that everyone deserves forgiveness, which is hard, man. Yeah, see? Exactly. Exactly. So, but I've been wrestling with it. So but that also includes if everyone deserves forgiveness, then how do you cut off the chances? You know, what's your criteria? And I don't know.
I think it's when you see somebody repeating the same behavior over and over again. And because to me, I feel like if you are really trying to change, you're not going to continue to do the same thing over and over again. So once you start seeing a pattern, then that to me would be a cutoff. Like, I can't keep forgiving you for the same. Like, you keep knocking me upside the head, you know what I mean? I'm not going to keep forgiving you over that.
I think it's a balance, though, between your own personal perspective. Some of us don't need second chances. We appreciate that second one, so we don't need a third or a fourth or a fifth. But I know people in my life that I've given 100 to because they needed it. For me, it didn't take me long. But there are people in my life that I give them room. I don't let them exploit me too much. But there are some people that I've just given room to just fuck up over and over and over again, and I let them deal with the consequences, but they come back and they try and they fuck up again, and I give them that room. So I think it's a balance though, because for me, I don't need it. So I tend to think that other people don't need it either, but some people, honestly, there are some people that just, you got to give them room.
I think the only person that I can give unlimited chances to is my child. That's it. Because again, it's my job to raise you and correct patterns.
That's an example though. That's just an example because in some instances you ain't gonna.
I'm not subscribing to that shit. I tell my daughter all the time, I will disown you. I will.
And then you're gonna wonder why she gonna put you in an old folk home when it comes time.
I got her little sister. What you mean? Like no. But I still got the 3-year-old. I got a backup plan.
Like,
backup plan.
I got a will and some money stashed.
Backup plan to back up the backup.
Yeah, I hear you.
No.
I hear you. Yeah,
it's on to the last. You gonna understand. You gonna respect me to the utmost. You don't get no unlimited chances in this house. Are you crazy?
Yeah, children don't want nothing. You can't let them know. You give them an inch, they're going to take a mile.
They sure will.
No.
You know what? Until you haven't brought you in this world. I'm telling you, I got 2 girls and 2 boys. The boys, I can't leave that to their dad. Y'all, you deal with them. But the girls, I can't wait. Like you ever seen that Chris Rock special when he said, I knocked her ass in between the man that called, I knocked her ass in between the dryer?
You got to punch him in the chest early.
I can see it. I'm going to wind up knocking my daughter in that little spot between the stove and the counter.
As soon as my son sits up, I'm going to punch him in the chest just so he understands.
Man.
This is life.
I'm going to smack her between the refrigerator and the counter.
Everybody going to want to punch you. I'm going to punch you with love.
On her 14th birthday.
Just start here.
And so his ribs, they're still flexible. So they're
While
great.
we're talking about fighting and all that fun shit. Okay, so I want to get into your MMA stuff. How much of a halt did this put to your training? And for those who didn't know, this is an MMA fighter and a trainer, and he trains our children on how to go out and defend themselves.
So I was right before I got shot. I was training to take a boxing match, my first pro boxing match. So it put a halt to that in that aspect because I don't see myself fighting at least for a year or 2, but I intend to. So I'm training to stay in shape. I still train at the gym. I still go through a lot of the exercises and a lot of the training exercises that I put my students through. So I'm going through them myself to try to get back some mobility and some strength because honestly, I lost a lot just sitting in the hospital. So I'm getting back in shape in that sense. But I don't know. I'm going to take it slow, to be honest, so that I'm safe because my injuries were really massive in terms of what happened to me. So I want to be safe in that aspect. But I'm a warrior. You know what I'm saying? It's got to come out in some way, shape, or form. So I intend to get to that, to the point where I'm competing in jiu-jitsu again. That'll probably be the first thing I do, actually, because it's easier for me to practice and compete jiu-jitsu than it is to do an MMA fight or a boxing match, because then I got to worry about facial injuries and things like that. With jiu-jitsu, I don't have to worry about that as much. So I'm taking the slow but sure path with that. But I'm still training. I still got students. I still go in and light a fire up under the ass. So that hadn't really stopped at all. Actually, I went right back to it probably about a week after I got out of the hospital. So
that's amazing.
I hope so. I hope it is, because I don't want it to be in vain, and it's really just a personal thing for me to get back to where I was as much as possible, because I don't want to let the decision of an idiot affect my life that much. I was blessed because it could have been worse, but it wasn't for a reason. I don't know completely what the reasons are. I think one is to be here for my kid for sure, but I also think it's just to maybe exemplify some gratitude for myself and maybe to reflect the glory of God Himself, because I ain't here except for that. So,
right. That's what's up. That's a beautiful thing.
Word.
Thank you. Anything over here? I'm quiet.
Yeah. So
Cheetos doesn't look like he's got his little snacks and whatnot over
I think Cheetos look good.
So one thing we wanted to address, we did have some controversy come along our way before we aired before we went live today.
Sure.
So we just wanted to kind of get into it and clear the air and get an idea of what, you know, what you want to say, what your take on it is, just as far as any allegations that are out there regarding you. Just, you know, how do you want to address it? What do you want to give on it? Or what type of energy do you want to give to it at this point?
Well, in short, not a lot, because the allegations are just that, allegations. And to be honest, the details of them are not anywhere near truth or reality. So, and to be even specific, so I'm not just talking around the bush to be quick, because I confront shit. I like to confront shit head on.
Absolutely.
I had a recent incident with my baby's mother right after, you know, my child was born, where her and I had a really bad argument. And I have learned when I have those sort of situations occur to do one thing and do the best thing, and that's get the fuck up out of there. And I have also learned that when you do that, for example, in my own life, but I think in general, you know, leaving is a powerful thing. And oftentimes, the person or people that you're leaving, they get resentful. Let me give you an example. When our people left the South in droves and went north, man, them white folks got mad as fuck. Right. They even created a psychological diagnosis for not wanting to stay in the South or be a slave. They thought that was, you wanting to be free was a mental disability. Right. So I have found that happen not just historically, but personally. And the interesting thing is the argument with my baby's mother wasn't shit. And to be honest, if you ask us right now, because we've asked each other, what the fuck was it about? The details are muddy, which makes the whole shit ridiculous. Yeah. But as a reaction to the argument, I literally packed my bags and left. And she wasn't happy about that. So it turned into much more of a physical altercation, not where we put our hands on each other, to be quite honest, but it was a lot of throwing shit as I left out the door, because I was clear, I'm getting the fuck up out of here. I don't care what you do and what you throw and how mad you are. I need to get me some space. Now, there was a nosy friend that my baby's mama turned to for solace and consolation and counseling, who then took the minuscule details that she was related to by my baby's mama and turned it into this crazy, and we talked earlier about social media is the devil. So this wench gets on social media, and it becomes this big crazy story where the details that even me and my baby mom don't agree with. It was weird because it really sort of was this, to me, it was this real psychological strangeness. This person really scared the fuck out of me because I was like, yeah, you can't have this, because she's a doula. She was my baby's mama's doula, and I was like, yeah, we can't have her around the baby because she might kidnap it and try to sacrifice it to wood gods. Right. Really honestly, if it makes her look ridiculous, that's good, because fuck her. She really got out of line. And she also, in her sort of diatribe on Facebook, she included some really crazy details about it. She actually accused me of raping a child. And I was like, and I had to dig to the bottom of that, where it really was her hearing that about somebody else that was true, and not understanding that that wasn't about me. That was about someone else. And she took that and put my name on it. So it was this big, again, social media bullshit. Now, I addressed it in terms of that, and my baby's mama addressed it, and her and old girl ain't no longer friends, and there's no contact, which is great because I don't want my baby around her in any way, shape, or form. Okay. But the reality is nothing happened in terms of what people might have thought, especially not even what this other person said. I think some people took that information and they ran with it. Some brothers in our communities who liken themselves to the protectors of women put on their Captain Saberho cape and said some dumb shit, but they didn't say it to me. And then when I confronted them, they was all like mice and shit. It goes back to what I said earlier about connectivity. Nobody who made any kind of comments even knows me. This woman didn't know me personally at all. I had met her like twice in my whole life. And a lot of people who sort of felt some sort of way, none of them called me. None of them ever said, hey, you know, I heard this. Are you good? Is this, you know, is there something we can do? None of that shit happened, which again goes back to the idea of connectivity. Because the people that are in my circle, they did that shit. They seen it. They said, first of all, we know that shit ain't even true. But what can we do if there's anything to help with this? That's what happened with my peoples. And I have learned to foster those type of interactions and those type of relationships that have been amazing in my life. And so there's not much energy to give to it. Okay. Because what ended up happening as evidence was then on both of our pages, you got us together with the baby the next day.
Right.
So if things were what was being portrayed, none of that shit would have happened. So, which was interesting because then it made the person who started the rumor really upset. Right. It was like, yeah, because you want some bullshit. So in reality, there's not much to give to the allegations or even the concerns. I guarantee that no one who expressed a concern to anyone on this show about me being here ever said shit to me, which is an indicator of kind of where we go wrong in how we interact with each other. Because, you know, if we respect each other on just some basic shit, right, then you wouldn't even have to address the concerns at all, especially in this way, and so forth.
And I think that was one of the biggest factors into going into even asking the question about it. Because I know we've all been in a situation where there's an incident between you and one person. It gets to this person, and by the time that incident or that story wraps around back to you, man, you're wondering, well, where the hell was I at when all that happened?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Killed somebody.
Yeah.
You know.
Ninja
stars was getting thrown out.
This is exactly what happened in this situation.
You know?
There were stories about what happened that both of us were like, well, we weren't there when that happened. How it's being described. So, it was a demonstration of, because I'm so linked in the community. A lot of people know me, but a lot of people know of me as opposed to actually know me. And so it was an interesting expose about how rumors, like you said, go around and people then get nosy about some shit that has nothing to do with them whatsoever.
Sprinkle shit on there.
Because their own shit's fucked up. Yeah, their own shit is fucked up.
Of course.
And also how disrespectful we are to each other. It really, that's the part that kind of gets me. Because we don't understand how disrespectful those things are. If I hear something bad about you and I go and talk about it to everybody.
Right, ask everybody but you.
But you.
But that's how the city works. I can't stand Denver on that for several reasons.
It's not Denver though, only. Trust me.
It's just the world? Is that just how the world works?
It's how, yeah, absolutely. It's exactly how it works.
I hate it here.
Yeah. So we just have to, but what it does is for me, it tells me to be better. Like, even my decision when the event happened, it just reaffirmed, yes, you're making the good decisions because, again, you remove yourself from something that might escalate into something out of control. You remove yourself, even out of respect for the person that you're having the conflict with. Let me go.
As somebody who knows you, when it came to me, I was confused.
Of course.
Like, it doesn't really sound like the person that I know I've known him to be a protector and making sure that, you know, black women are taken care of. Right. You know, so needless to say, when I heard it, it hurt because it didn't make sense. Right. Does that make sense?
No, I understand that. And your reaction at least tells me you got some sense. Because the reality is, I walk a certain way and I got a track record for certain things that then if you come back and say something crazy, you like, the evidence is out there. I got receipts. So, again, most of the time that people say those things, they weren't there and they don't know who was involved. That's usually the factor that's common to that. They were never there. They never saw it. It didn't have anything to do with them in any way, shape, or form. They just heard it from somebody. And then they themselves don't know shit about the people involved. And I find that happening over and over again. Even in incidents that come to me, I'll be like, wait a minute, I don't even know that motherfucker. You telling me some shit about somebody I don't know? Let's go ahead and stop this conversation. Because I already know what you're looking for. You want me to carry it on, give it to somebody else, or do some shit that you yourself don't got no courage to do whatsoever. I had so many people with the incident, hey, we should go holler at Brother Taj. Well, here's his phone number, and none of them called. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, because you ain't got no balls.
But they'll ask everybody you hang out with
Yeah.
about what's up with Taj.
Oh, man. Yeah, I had to tell one of our local poets who has a kind of a track record for doing that dumb shit. He did it to me before. And I had told him before, we had a personal conversation about why it's not a good idea to do that again. And he did it again.
When you're saying that dumb shit, you mean?
Yeah, like going around,
talking to everybody.
But me about what should be done to me. And I'm like, so when I heard it, I was like, hey, let him know next time I see him, I'm going to smack one cheek to the other. Just because it's just so disrespectful.
Right.
And that's not, really that's not here or there. That's really nothing. It's just the idea of when you do that, do you understand how you're sort of exacerbating the centuries-long habit of just treating somebody less than really as a person?
Right. There's no respect there.
None.
Right.
None whatsoever. And so I try to avoid that myself. I make it a point to say it starts with me. So if you bring me some bullshit about somebody, I'm going to tell you right off the jump. You want some bullshit, and you need to take that shit somewhere else. And I figure if I start with me, then maybe somebody will learn from it, and it will catch on. Because we all want respect. Right. And we want to give it. I think we want to give it. We just haven't learned how.
So what kind of advice would you give a young man who may find themselves in that same position or in that same situation?
I would say, again, I have this philosophy. The most powerful thing you can do is leave. Leave the situation. Put yourself in another situation where you can think, where you can separate yourself from whatever craziness is going on. Allow that to settle down. But therefore, and then you become accountable for your own behavior because you're not there. Then you can come back to it. That's what I did. I left, bro. And then 2 days later, it was like, hey, okay, now we can talk about it and be real about what really happened, especially now that this shit is getting stupid.
Right. And I think that's the best advice you can give in this situation. And that's for anybody watching, is to just, when it gets to that point, leave, walk away. Your anger should never resort to, and that's men and women, your anger should never resort to you putting your hands on anyone.
Absolutely.
Keep your hands to yourself.
Absolutely.
Or anything. Or anything.
Yeah, because look, you can, there was one of the stories that came out was I picked the couch up and flipped it with my baby mama and the baby on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
with your good arm or the
apparently with my
I'd
arm.
be glad I'm not in charge of my clips. I'll put that little baby arm clip from
I'm talking about, apparently I'm bionic. And I'm like, well, okay, somebody think I'm really, really, really strong, but that's still ridiculous. I mean, I look, this worm don't even work that well. This one got a screw that goes from the elbow to the middle of my forearm. I'm not picking up no couches for no reason, and I certainly ain't flipping them with my baby on it. Like, Dad, can you give me some credit I took my baby off the couch or something? But no, it was everything.
Everything. Her and the
I
baby.
was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was confused when I heard that, like, his arm don't work.
How does that feel when you hear stuff come back about you that makes you sound more and less than human at the same time?
I'm gonna tell you, I feel disrespected, to be quite honest, because what happens is I know the perception it puts in people's minds that can be dangerous. There's a perception. First of all, I'm a black man, right? So you got me out here flipping couches with one good arm. You are sort of saying, yeah, brothers don't never get hurt. And brothers are always strong, which means that anytime these white people with badges encounter us, they think the same way. Remember Mike Brown's killer said he was like a monster, right? A big old black bear.
Right.
The white boy is as big as him. Same weight, same height. So how in your mind is somebody that look exactly like you, not you? Because you bought into the story that black men are these big old strong monsters. You got to tase them 20 times. And so if you want to put that story out there and I'm flipping couches and shit, that's some dangerous shit. I had somebody do that to me, to the police. Told the police, oh man, this dude is an MMA guy and he's police violent. They said, you sure? It was like, absolutely.
Well, you know, that's not the first time that I've ever heard of that in history. The doctor who created OBGYN, he practiced on black women.
Didn't think they felt pain.
Yeah.
And had a flap. Would just open the flap to their uterus.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of shit is that?
Yeah.
Right.
But that we were taught that. They thought we were strong because of course we're property. We gotta get back out there and work. But we bought into it. And now that's why we strong, right? We're strong black men. We're strong black women, right? Black power. Man, come on, yo. I get sick like to say it, the next motherfucker.
You give me a paper
I
cut
stubbed my
out.
toe. I stubbed my toe in the dark, and that shit hurt like a motherfucker.
Right.
And that shit don't hurt less because I'm black.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I done went through some shit. That shit still hurt like a motherfucker.
We all buckle when we stub
Yeah,
our toe
man.
and
So let's
question if God really wants
let's
us
not
to go.
exacerbate the myth.
So,
Right.
I gotta ask you this before we get out of here.
Sure.
All right. So, like I said, the show was about what do I know about the criminal justice system? What kind of advice can you give our young black men and young black women on staying? I guess staying out of it, and then if you have to be in it, the best way to get through it.
Shit. Fuck. We need another show for the answer.
Oh, man.
But I think in short, the best way to stay out of it is first understand that it's ready for you. The best way to it's a trap. So the best way to stay out of a trap is first of all, know it's a trap, right? I mean, certain animals, they'll sniff a trap, be like, oh, we know that's some fucked up shit. And then they'll teach their kids, hey, see that thing right there with the claws on it, with the little piece of rabbit in the middle? Don't fuck with that. Because all it's going to do is trap you and you're going to die. They'll teach each other that shit. That's what we have to do. But for our present generation, I feel like, and this is really coming from the parents as well, that if they have some goals that are really goals where they're just confident that they can achieve that goal no matter what the fuck anybody says. This goes back to the title of Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope. You got to have a straight up, almost insanity to set a goal for yourself that has nothing to do with avoiding the criminal system. A person wants to run a business. A person wants to be the president. Those are goals that have nothing to do with, weaving through the criminal justice system. It's you go to school, you work a certain job, you go into a certain thing, and then you hit that. Because other people have done it. One of my best friends was in prison in Kansas, Leavenworth, and became the mayor of Leavenworth. Because he decided, fuck what I went through, I'm going to set this goal right here. And I think for our youth, it's that. Now, I think they also need some help in setting those types of goals and then staying focused, which comes back to us as parents and also as maybe an older generation if we're not parents. If they do get into the system, they have to have some audacity to not do the things that the system is already encouraging to do to stay in it. Like, don't fucking take a plea bargain. Period. Not just because of your own case, but if everybody decided to say, fuck a plea bargain, I'm going to go to the next hearing, then the court's going to be like, fuck, we got to have more days on the calendar, which is only 365. So then they're going to come back and say, you know what? This case ain't really worth prosecuting. Let's drop it. So now you got less prosecution of cases, which means less people locked up, more justice, people will actually be found innocent because they're going to be like, look, I'm going to trial on this shit.
Right.
Which, again, has a trickle-down effect on the system itself being laid out as a trap, but now we ready for it. I learned that lesson recently. I got in prison for false charges. Got put in the same situation, and this time I was like, shit, I'm going to make all y'all work. And when it came down to it, they gave up. Because they realized I wasn't going to fall for the trap they had set for me. And when I got to the point where they had to prove me innocent or prove me guilty, they dropped the case and literally apologized. We're bad. We're sorry. We should have never prosecuted this shit. I knew that shit.
That's good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's definitely good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
You're
for sharing
quite
that with us.
You're quite welcome. Thank you again for having me. I love being here, man.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're
I'm
here. Like I
coming
said,
back.
I only knew you as
Soon
a
as
poet, so
Yeah.
now I know layers and
As
stuff.
soon as you're ready
Layers.
for me, I'm coming back.
You better come back with some poetry.
Man, yeah.
We'll come back
No
for
doubt.
something. Like, we'll come back, bring it back for another
Whatever it is.
random list to get him
And
cussed out.
hopefully
in
you don't got no
DMs.
controversy where they be like, hey, man.
Oh, you already know you about to hear about this list. Everybody named mama about to be in your box. Like, I'm your best friend, and you didn't.
Oh, yeah. No
Yeah,
shout
you
out
guys
for
hear-
me.
You guys hear some
I'll be
bullshit
like,
about
man.
this, but no, I want to thank you very, very much for coming by. Thank you very much, Jamie, for setting this up. This is Jamie's idea to bring Taj on and whatnot. Because I'm like, I only know him as a poet. I'm like, the fuck's he do? Like, should we?
friends.
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah,
Why are
yeah.
you talking to this guy for what? So I'm glad.
I first of all, let me say that I appreciate the platform that you guys, first of all, are putting together. Not just providing, but it's also an example I think many people can follow. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your courage even bringing me on, allowing me to speak whatever I think is my truth. And hopefully it sounds good. But I just appreciate you all sitting here and doing what you're doing because other people need to see this and then feel encouraged that it can be done. You guys are sort of already setting the tone and setting the precedent for people to come back behind you. I mean, earlier, like speaking of my baby mama, her daughters were right in here in this studio and trying to follow y'all. So I want to say thank you for the feet print that you guys are putting in the sand for people to follow.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's quite well.
But make sure that everybody likes and follows all of their favorite people on this panel. Tosh, please let them know again how to get a hold of you and how to keep up with you and the things that you were doing.
Word, you can follow us. Our online website is scccolorado.org. And again, you can find us, you can Google Second Chance Center, always add the center part. And you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us out there, period. And if you walk down 16th to the corner of Dayton Street in Aurora, you can find us right there on the corner. So,
all right. Thank you very much. And ma'am.
And of course, you know, your girl, Jamie Nichole, you can find me on Facebook under Jamie Nichole or IG at authoress_Jamie_Nicole.
Y'all can find me on Facebook, Dontre Smith, Viva La Womack, Instagram Womack was here 83, Twitter Trace Stradamus. You can find me on all of those.
Trace Stradamus. And your girl Rukus, you can find me right here on the AHRR network on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. live with everyone here but What Do I Know podcast. And also RUKUS 303 everywhere. That's Instagram, Facebook, Queen of Commentary on Twitter. And I think that's pretty much about it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to But What Do I Know podcast. Come back next week. Next week, we will be joined by this one here. We'll be joined next week by Carmen Love and Suave General, who are going to come rep for the men and the ladies. And we're going to sit there and find out what we know about exotic dancers, y'all. Please come back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. AHRR, But What Do I Know podcast. Peace and blessings.
answer this question the best way that he can. And we're going to get it in. And, you got 4 minutes. And we're going to analyze this thing a little later on. So here we go. You ready, Hardaway? Let's go. Let's get it, man. Let's get it. So I got a question for you, man. So say, for instance, you decide to take a nice little road trip with your daughter, right? Okay. Just want to get out, go do something nice for yourselves. And you're driving, you're taking a nice long trip. But all of a sudden, you realize to yourself that I should have went to this gas station that I just passed up 45 minutes ago. But it's the next one up the way. It shows that the sign that there is no more gas stations for the next 10 miles. But all of a sudden, your GPS goes black. Oh. Something encourages you to pull over. You have no GPS, so the prepared parent that you are, you do have a map, an actual paper map. So you have the ability to navigate and get around. Okay. Yes. So, you with your 11-year-old daughter, sitting in the car, you're looking at the map. You realize that your alternator light cuts on. Yeah. The alternator light cuts on, so you know I should turn around and go back to this gas station that I just passed 45 minutes ago because there's no gas stations for the next 10 miles. All right. So we're on point. So as you make this U-turn, unawarely, you kind of run over a nail. So this nail is kind of detrimental because as you make that U-turn, it kind of went aside. So you kind of had a blowout. So now, in the distance, you can see some lights. It looks like it could be a house. So you have a decision to make. Do you, now with this alternator light on and this blowout, nail in the tire, and the nail in the tire, no gas, and so you got to get some gas. There's a gas station 45 minutes behind you, driving, but there's a house that's kind of like walking distance, almost not walking distance, but you can see it. It's kind of hard to see because it's raining now. It's off in the distance. Yeah, it's off in the distance. And it's raining now, so it's kind of even harder to see that now. So, before you get ready to head out or even make a decision to head out, you do have a revolver that has one bullet in it, okay, and a fully charged taser, stun gun. What next?
Let me see, it's raining, no gas station for miles. I'm either short on gas or I just need any type of help, period. No GPS because my phone is now blacked out. Taser and a revolver. I do believe I'm gonna have to proceed to the house. That's the closest. I will keep my taser. I will keep my revolver. I'll probably hold the revolver with the one bullet. I'll allow my daughter to hold a taser.
Okay. You're gonna get the 11-year-old the taser. Okay.
Being responsible. I mean, dad that I am, I got some rain cover in the car and I got a kid, but at the same time, I don't have all the tools that I need to get the job done that I need to get done. So I need some help. I need some help. I need some help. So
you are the help.
So what do we do? Beyond my control. I mean, I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to ask for help. I mean, I'm gonna have to take the trek to the distance and get some help. I don't want to do any more damage to my vehicle, but at the same time, I'm protected enough with my ability, with my personal physical ability. But I do got some tools that could help me out in a tight squeeze, in a jam. Okay. So yes, okay. I'll keep the revolver. Okay. I let my daughter allow her to hold the taser because shit, ain't no telling what's gonna happen once we get to this house. Yeah.
So you take her with you?
Yes, she has to go with me. Okay. I mean, the car has to be left. I mean, of course, I'm gonna take her with me. I'm gonna keep the keys. I mean, there's nothing I can do that's in my control. I mean, but ask for help because anything more could either damage the situation or make it worse. I mean, that's the best thing that I feel like that I could do in a situation such as that, with all the odds damn near stacked against me. Yeah.
Okay, so from the distance, you can see from the distance that it looks like it could be a house.
Looks like it could be a house.
It's raining. You're gonna walk out there. You're gonna give your daughter the taser. You're gonna keep the revolver, and you're gonna take your chance by walking to this other location.
Okay. To get some help. I gotta get some help. There's nothing I can do as far as going back, because 45 minutes back the other way for the nearest public service station with no phone, no GPS. That's gonna translate to a 2 to 3 hour walk on foot.
It is.
That's gonna translate to a long walk. So do I take a chance on leaving my daughter to walk 2 hours in the opposite direction for help? Ooh, probably not.
Whoa.
I'm gonna have to take it. Right, she's gonna have to go with me.
That'll be a hell of a decision to
Man,
make.
she's only 11 years old. I can't take it. I can't take that chance.
Okay.
There is possibly a light. It's closer, but if I know in my mind that I've got 2 hours, or maybe I got 30 minutes, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna seek out the 30-minute route. I'm gonna just make sure I keep my pistol and my taser handy and my baby with me. It's gonna be a long walk either way you go, so we have a lot of explaining. It's gonna be a lot of talking and explaining that needs to be done. Yeah, definitely.
And that's how we gonna rock that, right?
That's how we gonna rock that.
All right. Okay, so well, that's what it is then. So, so you rather go ahead and just say, I'll take the chance and walking with my baby girl in the rain. You know you are in the country kind of, cause but anyway, you don't know what that house is because it could be Dr. Javorkian over there making human centipedes. So you with that?
Oh man,
You really don't know what's down that way.
I don't. See. Well,
I'm just wondering.
I do got a pistol. I do got a tape. You know what I mean? The walk is gonna definitely be filled with a lot of information in regard to having my daughter utilize it properly. I mean, I could take the chance with the car because it's not totally dead. However, the tire is just flat, but there is no telling to what extreme that light comes on. And knowing me, I'm a responsible guy. Let's not forget that. Any lights coming on in my car, it means something. It means something.
Okay. I
I guess I'm going to Kevorkian crib, yeah. With my pistol and taser.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Yeah.
All right, my ninja. Okay, well, yeah, that's the buzzer. We out of time. That is 4 minutes. We appreciate y'all checking in on the next one. We got our boy Hardaway here. We talking about he is not leaving his baby girl in the car by herself. On top of that, he gonna give her a stun gun. So hopefully she don't stun the shit out of her.
Right, hopefully she don't.
Or stun the head out of him. Oh, daddy! You know what I'm saying? They gonna take their chances and walking in the rain. So we gonna get back with y'all next in 4 minutes. Mr. DJ, yeah.
Wait, now that was a serious one, Jack. Now we want to know, what would you have done in these type of situations? As a matter of fact, please leave your comments down below, subscribe, like, and don't forget, most importantly, we want to thank you for joining us here on the AHRR Network. As a matter of fact, do you have what it takes to survive in 4 minutes? Let's see what you got. Until then, join us the same time, same channel, same network. AHRR.